Salud, amigos.
Greetings, friends. Remember of our polluted, beloved, and unique spacecraft, which, since the last time we met, has taken another turn about its imaginary axis and, of course, continues creating events in full development. And today is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. And not always I say this so eagerly. It's been a tough week. There's been a lot of events happening around the world. However, we've been telling you about every single one of them. We have 9 national awards of journalism, and we have the unique Simón Bolívar Prize. But we are the Doyen program when speaking about satellite information. And here we are going to tell you the events after the arrival of that person who lives on the White House and his desire to make history, but at his own way, someone who's used to sign checks of everyone working with him and just listening to the words, "Yes, sir." So he arrived at the United Kingdom, a specific and historic ally of the United States, mainly in World War II and World War I. And how did it go for him then? Well, terribly. And what happened? For instance, we get information of different sources, for example, Reuters. And Reuters himself, when he had a ceremony at the British Parliament, he said, "I am very thankful for this reward for every one of us who works with information, but I would like to add something. My last name is Reuter, but it is not English, it is German, and you pronounce it Reuters." So these are events that have taken place through the history of communication, and the events in full development that we're going to tell you about tell us also about weird things that are taking place around the world, and we need to understand what's happening based on the different events that are taking place with so many people that have interests with oil. And what we are seeing right now is what we saw yesterday in Reuters. We work with Reuters every day in Venezuela television, the images of the protest against President Donald Trump at his arrival of the United Kingdom, that apparently Reuters did not publish a single one of this image on their service. That's why we had to take them from different media. And the demonstrators against Trump who filled the streets of London, all of them carrying signs against Trump, and this is how he was welcomed. These are the images of Theresa May and also some signs about a toxic relationship between Trump and other demonstrators with the signs. So tens of thousands of people with their signs, as well as using pans and hitting them with wooden spoons, demonstrated their eagerness against the visit of Trump while he first visited this country as a president. And this is something that has never seen before in the history between Washington and London. Toxic relationship, as stated in one of the signs, and Trump is there with his wife. Demonstrators had a sign that had the following statement: "Never with Trump." And there were also some signs against Theresa May speaking about the toxic relationship with him, and others stating Trump must go. Why didn't we get this information on Reuters yesterday is something that we are yet to know. It's ironic because apparently our own politicians are good. This is what the British are saying. They are always complaining about their politicians. However, in contrast with Trump, they seem better. Thousands of people in London against the visit of Trump. The Royal Guard and the demonstrators against Trump who meet in Windsor. Demonstrators are near the Windsor Castle, as close as they can, and some of them stated, "Trump is not welcome here." They have other signs stating, "Trump, you're a liar, bigot, homophobe," and there were many protest signs against Trump. Thousands and thousands of protesters next to the Windsor Castle, where President Trump was having tea with Queen Elizabeth. Even though it wasn't a complete state visit, he did have military bands in Windsor before himself and Melania Trump had tea with the Queen, who's today 92 years old. Some others used loudspeakers to show him how unwelcome he was at the country. Small hands, small minds. And of course his hair, and that's ridiculous enough. And of course that finger shows what's happening. Corbyn joins the protest against Trump, who's the leader of the Working Party, Jeremy Khan. When someone at a global stage condemns the Muslims just because they're Muslims is not acceptable, and we will call them to react. Mainly the message that is sent today from London is that together in London and the whole country, our message for the visitor is that we are together in the hope of a world of justice, not division. We are thriving to get rid of racism, misogyny, and we also have the hope of all our diversity. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for the message that we're sending the rest of the world about Trump's presence here. Legislators in the protest, together with Trump, stated that at least 250,000 people took place in the march that led to Trafalgar Square in this conference. Of course, there are Muslims with Christians and Mexicans, and take a look at this aerial view of Trafalgar Square. Some very interesting signs state, "Build bridges, not walls." In the culture of their own drawings, Baby Blim and his antenna, a lot of people in the Trafalgar Square stating Trafalgar must go. This inflatable doll, it's a hot air balloon, is Trump as a baby with his hair. He needs to go. Trump needs to leave. Under the bright blue sky, demonstrators went through London showing signs that stated "Dump Trump." Dump Trump. And they were asking for the women to be left at peace. James Corden was part of the demonstration just as any other citizen, as part of the British. 1/4 of a million people were protesting in London. The police did not offer an estimation of the number of people, and these people were in Piccadilly and Regent Street, places where people are often left to transit freely. Apparently, they were attempting to reduce the impact of a march as such, and this is the first time that it happens in history when a president of the United States goes to the UK and is welcomed in such a way. Police officers didn't provide an estimate of the numbers of the crowd. However, in this case, did they not provide any numbers. And they closed very important streets of London. Piccadilly and Regent Street are the equivalent of Fifth Avenue in New York. Demonstrators manufactured and inflated the Trump baby doll outside of the parliament. and they used it as a zeppelin, this giant balloon. There were also many American flags against the president. Donald Trump's opposition flew a 6-meter zeppelin representing the president of the United States as an orange grumpy baby who was wearing a nappy in front of the British Department, and it's riding one of the lions of Trafalgar Square. Thousands of people were there to see the launching of this zeppelin, together with the organizers of this event with red hats, and bringing together the Trump baby zeppelin. After counting 10, there was an ovation when the floating baby started flying over the Thames River and the Parliament. The officer of communication of Charity, 26-year-old, mentioned that they were trying to make people laugh, but also show a serious point. Trump and his ideas are not welcome. Trump and the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Theresa May, had talks in the residence of May in Chequers after publicly criticizing the Brexit strategy of May, so leaving the European Union, and they mentioned that it was very, very important. He criticized the Brexit strategy, and he said there's a lot of things to be said. After watching people yesterday, Peter Strosse, who was testifying yesterday, and this is a witch hunt and of course cheating, and I think that this hurts our country and our relationship with Russia. We would have the opportunity of having a good relationship with Russia and also with President Putin. I hope this will happen. Then asked if relationships could improve with Russia. And he said, yes, they do. He's speaking about Crimea. But he said once again, President Obama failed in Crimea. I don't think I would have done this if I would have been the president. This was done under Obama's administration, and I think that he will have to admit this. But how do you get rid of this? Well, we will have to see what happens. I'm not bad at doing things. If you see what I've done against what other peoples have done in 160 days, there's no one that's even close to what I've done. And don't believe what you see. But it was a disaster created by Obama. If he had been the president, he wouldn't have taken over Crimea. I don't think that he would have done this with Crimea. So, he continues speaking ill about the president before him. I would also like to thank Prime Minister Fair for having fair trade and reciprocal with the United States. After the conclusion of Brexit, maybe the UK will leave the EU. I don't know what they are going to do, but whatever they do will be fine with me. This is your decision. Whatever you do is fine with us. We just need to ensure that we can negotiate together. It's the only thing I care about. United States hope to end a bilateral agreement with the United Kingdom, and this is the next opportunity for our two countries, and we're going to take advantage of it. Of course, nothing of this is winged. He is always reading because these are delicate events, and his hair looks better now. And he no longer has orange hair. Now it's white. So we will take advantage of the decision of the British of having an autonomous government. It is a very complicated negotiation. It is a strong United Kingdom, and the United States are also strong and independent. It is, of course, a blessing for the world. Prime Minister, I would like to thank you once again for the honor of welcoming me to the United States, to the United Kingdom. My mother was born here, so it means something, maybe more, maybe a lot more. And we had a wonderful visit. Yesterday, I met the Prime Minister better than any other person. We spent a lot of time together, and for a year and a half, we have seen each other many, many times. But yesterday, I was very ashamed of the rest of the table. But we were the ones speaking about many problems and solutions for this, and it was a great evening. Maybe it is because he did not speak to the rest of the guests. As we are united, there's going to be tradition and friendship, and this is good. In our meeting today with Theresa May, we have discussed different topics that are crucial for the agenda. And based on this, there are a group of shared priorities. We also spoke about Iran. Iran should never have nuclear weapons. We've agreed on that, and I need to stop them, and I'm going to do so, and she's going to do the same, and we're going to do this together. We need to stop terrorism. We need to stop this. We need to stop terrorism, and we need to reach many countries that have taken a long way. Financing terrorism must stop, and it needs to stop now. The Prime Minister who has the pressure on the regime, and they don't need any type of a stimuli, because they've done what they do, and it encourages me, and we're doing this together with a strict coordination. The United Kingdom and the United States are also capable of having cooperation with our armed forces that work together in battlefields throughout the world.
Who serve together on battlefields all around the world. Today, the Prime Minister
and myself saw different manifestations of the special forces of the United States and the United Kingdom, and we provided certain demonstrations that were incredible. The talent of these young, brave people is incredible. We saw it in the Academy of Sandberg, and the perfect cooperation between our armies, which is crucial in order to tackle the different security threats that we have together. And there are different threats than the ones that we have seen so far. They have always been out there, but they are different and they are severe, and we will work with them perfectly.
And we will handle them well.
Well, good afternoon, and I'm pleased to welcome.
Mientras tanto, Trump hablaba de migración.
Trump also spoke about migration and stated that it isn't good either for Europe or the United States. With Prime Minister, he said, this is a negative event. I have a great relationship with Germany, with Angela Merkel. However, I think that this is not good for Germany, and they are wounded in different places of Europe with migration. I know that this is not politically correct, but I will say this and I will say it out loud. So he continues doing what he always does. Take a look about the things that are changing. Take a look at the things they are doing. Take a look at the things that are happening in countries that never before had any problems. It's a very sad and unfortunate situation. However, I don't think it's good either for our country or Europe. As you know, we are superior to anything that could have happened before, but we have terrible migration laws. We are doing things perfectly, but we do not have good laws because we barely have any migration laws. He contradicts himself. Our laws are so bad. Well, he says that they're bad, but at the same time that they don't have any. Well, we need to cross the border, yes, and setting a food on land, and then you're the 5-year demand is the craziest thing to see. If someone serves food on the country, they can request this. In the meantime, in China, the Vice President of China meets with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Botswana. Here they both are, Wang Qichang shaking the hand of unity down, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Botswana. The meeting is quite important because the role of China becomes bigger in each one of the different geopolitical areas. So the ministers met and requested both parties to continue strengthening their mutual friendship and to expand pragmatic cooperation and share experiences for development. While speaking about the long-standing friendship and cooperation between both countries, they spoke that the need of building a future in community should be a very important part of the agenda. Members of the United Nations and negotiation experts speak about the trade war between China and the United States. This is no longer a theory. The director of the conference Paul Hansen stated, when two elephants fight, then the grass is going to suffer, and this is what's happening. When two countries as big as these two have a dispute, the smaller countries are the ones who suffer, and for smaller countries and developing countries, they're going to have a lot of trouble. It's very harmful for these countries, and it is also linked to many other programs as migration and immigration and the economic development affected by this, and they have a bigger impact on the economy than in biggest nations. Then Filippo, a partner of Consulting Hong Kong, stated, more American companies are reporting growth in their income than before. More companies become profitable in China, and this has never happened before. And many others are investing more than what they had before. And this shows a change in number of companies that are held in China that contribute to profitability in a central hub. And this indicates, according to the numbers shown, that everything works as a dynamic market. And of course, there's a commitment and interest as well as an understanding of the opportunity it brings to the market. Michael Kwan, president of the Center for China and Globalization, stated, from the perspective of economy and stability, it is very important and need to have a long-term planning. So this commercial war will happen for an indefinite time, and it will, of course, affect the planification of a lot of people, as well as the relationship between countries and the monetary situation. So, when elephants fight, then grass will suffer. And this is modern China. It is incredible to see what they have been able to achieve. An explosion in a chemical factory in China kills 19 people and leaves 12 wounded. This is just in. An explosion in a chemical plant in China that has killed 19 people and wounded 12, according to the state media. It is the biggest incident in this type of industry so far. 2 people were at the hospital, none of them in critical state, according to the state channel. It is not clear what caused the explosion, and this is an industrial park hours away from the capital of Xinhuang, when the authorities so far haven't provided an answer about the events taking place. A Palestinian teenager killed in protest in Gaza Friday, so once again there's crisis here. There it is, just a child. People and ambulances outside the hospital, people carrying other people. And then this is what's happening in the border area. This is what we see every single Friday, which is the praying day. And the emotions grow, and the Red Half Moon, which is the equivalent of the Red Cross, often have to deal with wounded and dead people. Fumigation on this area, as well as Palestinian flags, people near the border with Israel, people walking near the border with Israel, a Palestinian flag waving, a lot of people in the border area. Behind all of this, Palestinian soldiers, no, there's a different version that was proved. Israeli soldiers killed a Palestinian teenager who had been a part of protests. Over 130 Palestinians have been killed in the border between these 2 countries and the Gaza Strip. In Pakistan, things are even worse. The number of deaths raises up to 70 after a suicide attack in Pakistan. Some people bringing help, some others trying to understand what has happened to the victims, ambulances coming and going, officers reaching the hospital, the wounded and mainly the young injured, who even have flags of the party in their vehicles. Allies of the party of Shalid de Mutahiba stated here, there's a threat for Abraham Hamid Muhani. This was mentioned by an ally of Sharif's party. Akram Kam Durrani After all this improvised logistics and that brutal explosion, a suicide attack in Pakistan, everyone was impacted by this. Of course, this is the day of prayer for them. And here the one who provided his statement was an ally of this party, Akram Khan Durrani. And this has really shaken not only the country but the whole area. It's a manslaughter. They say that there's a threat for this person, and I would like to ask this TV channel, if you have any information, you must tell us how you get this information and where did it come from, where are these people coming from. This is what he mentioned. Soldiers, militia, officers near the site of the explosion, police vehicles there, people who are still in shock. Then there's a police vehicle there. 70 people were killed, taking advantage of the meeting. Residents of Jordan hope that the bridge will soon be open to connect with Syria. Adan Abridaim, local resident and former Mayor Mafraq, mentioned, "We are happy that once again the border is controlled by the Syrians and could be reopened. This was the biggest door for trade of Jordan that joins Jordan with the countries of the Gulf, Lebanon, Turkey, and they were transported through this port with these imports. Previously there were many opportunities for employment and trade. People nearing the border areas were able to find a lot of employment with good salaries. However, due to the chaos in Syria, the business of the companies and the business, together with the customs, have been seriously hit."
وهذه الشركات والمجتمع أيضا المجتمع المحلي في محافظة المفرق لقد تضرر من هذه من الأحداث.
That's the original sound, so that the colonies who live in our country can listen to their original language. Adam Ibrahim, a local resident, stated, "People who live here are optimistic about reopening the port. We hope it will happen soon, particularly from the Syrian side. If both parties can reach an agreement and open the port as soon as possible, we'll have business once again, as we used to do, and everything was doing fine." Vehicles and residents of Jordan waiting for the bridge to be opened once the forces of the Syrian government decide to do so. When they took control on Friday, they are all waiting for the use of the cargo that they had to work with. This is a commercial port that is key. It's called Nasif from the Syrian side, and it connected the country with many other countries for trade. It closed on April, and ever since, trade between Syria and Jordan has seen a lot of problems, and the trucks that never stopped are there parked and, of course, empty. So, as you can see, many events taking place in the Middle East. As often, it is a very sensitive situation to see this happen, particularly on the praying day when these things start to happen. My 3 satellite monitors don't provide any information beyond the one that I have already told you, or the information we have for our second block. So now we're going to have a short break, and we will be back with more events in full development. Stay where you are. We'll be right back.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
We are back with more events in full development. And of course, it's time to speak about an ambassador without borders. Bravo Conce for dossier on Friday, July 13, protocol activities. The training ship for the 30th Regata Veloz-Americanas is currently sailing in a combined fashion. This means engine and sails, 6 knots, with a direction 068, position latitude 1130 north, longitude 1134 east. So let's take a look. This is above equator, 1130, and latitude, what was the number that we said? 30. So here, I'm not convinced about this data. Okay, 1130 north, no, this cannot be right. So 1130 north and 74 west. Okay, now it's right. I am sorry about my mistake. 74. So they are already in the Caribbean after crossing the Panama Canal, and it will arrive in Venestad, Curaçao, on July 15th, with the academic activities of providing training to the cadets on the following: load, maneuvering, calculations, electronic meteorology. These are the new modern things that we have in order to be in contact with all the meteorological references that are, of course, necessary for a training ship as such. The Simon Bolivar plan was fulfilled. Conditions: clouds, no precipitation, 30 knots of winds, that's a lot, and waves up to 3 meters. Good visibility, however. Barometer: this is an instrument used for the measuring of the atmosphere presence. However, when it goes down, it's going to be tough. Captain Antonio Mejía Ponte, Marco Frachela Arandia, Captain of the Command of the Bolivarian Army. As often, we will wish you good luck to the authorities, to the command, and to the crew member of Bravo Conce. I know that they're watching us on satellite, so best of luck for you. These are our desires for you. I was born in front of the sea. The rest, I cannot tell. So I was sailing in a hurricane. It's incredible to see something like this. And the prow apparently was about to turn. However, we were able to make it alive. Now, Mike Pompeo visits the President-elect of Mexico to speak about border issues. Is this a damage control or what is happening? Andrés Manuel López Obrador, elect President of Mexico, meets with workers of the United States, and López Obrador is seen there with all his staff. And these are the security measures required. There are also many workers of the United States that reached the meeting with López Obrador, and many officers walking here, and then there's an opportunity with the patriarch at the end, and this is the official picture as always. López Obrador together with Mike Pompeo, who's the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, and Steve Mnuchin. And here we have the picture of Benito Juárez. So apparently everything looks calm. There's a huge blockage in the outside of the street. Of course, there's security guaranteed for everyone. The media gathered outside the headquarters, bringing people of the United States in the participation of the changes. And of course, based on this,
Downstreet anotaba lo que estaba pasando aquí, personas
And there are people near the route that was going to be followed. They were near the headquarters for López Obrador. This is down street, however, I don't know why it has this name. People holding signs in protest, and ad hoc screams to this. This is the resistance of the mistreatment against the Mexicans in the border and south. And they are still fighting. We are still fighting. Creating fear is not governing. There are other rights as housing, education, and work. So these are the dynamics required within our violent realities in our community. Even though we are here, we are together, and we need to create our own power. There's an interesting sign in English. I was deported. Your crime? Being brown. Protesters are singing, no, 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 I don't want to be a North American colony. And the respect of the rights of others is peace. Pompeo arrives at the residency of the Mexican area, and they show the strength they have. When you have the honor of being there, you understand how things happen. This is an overview of the residence. There's a caravan arriving, as well as the workers of the United States. Take a look at the distance. No one gets any closer. And everyone have their blazers open. Why? Well, because they need to be quick in case there's any type of emergency or situation. If their blazer is not buttoned, they are security, and the ones carrying the briefcases, that's a different thing. And Mike Pompeo being greeted by Major Icaza Gonzalez, and this is the square, the biggest one in the world. This is the Forbidden City and the Avenue of Heavenly Peace. The states are blamed for doing off-world economy and forcing it to take higher risks. Who says this? An Argentinian officer. So all the world is reacting to the policies of Mr. Trump. We left Tiananmen. This is Capitol Hill. The world economy together is being affected because the struggle between these two powers creates volatility and uncertainty in the markets. Patricio Justo is the one who said this, professor of the Catholic University of Argentina. Commercial frictions between the biggest economy of the world have set world trade under the influence of this and create a lot of uncertainty in the world market. However, in Nanjing, this will be based on the commercial dispute, while the rest of the world will continue with more multilateralism, more integration between the different blocks of the world. The Obelisco, and this is the most important part of Buenos Aires. Patricio Justo, professor, was the one providing his speech. Based on this, the imposition of the states for different countries will become counterproductive and will go against the regulations, and Argentines protest by the reforms of Macri. Some people call him Cacri. That's a mix between Shed and Macri. This is Carrefour. Everyone is trying to buy things, but they can't. And there are many other peaceful protests. However, they're intense and they have a very high political cost. It is cold indeed. Some of them, however, hide their faces not only due to the cold weather. Now, Since Thursday, they're camping out with a hunger strike outside the Ministry of the Community. The president still has some pending processes beyond corruption and money laundering. They create protest in Brazil against a legal war that doesn't allow the liberation of Lula. Sergio Moro was the judge who sent Lula to jail, while his party state that this is a conspiracy to avoid his participation in the elections of October, who, according to the surveys, is still the leader. That's why the Labour Party brought the people to the streets for August. And this video shows information from journalist Daniela Morales for the news CMI. Who is CMI? That's Compañía Medios de Información. It has 3 issues at different times of the day. And what happened here? The armed forces in Colombia keep an alert in Guajira, Casanare, Guanía, and the Amazon as well. Members of the military forces of Colombia are especially trained with red flag trained and unitized United States for this. So as long as there are provocations, there will not be any answers. President-elect Iván Duque mentions that there's not going to be an ambassador there and that Colombia will withdraw from UNASUR. This belongs to Russian weaponry with a scope of 90 kilometers of distance, and hours before a congressman of Venezuela stated that they had a plan to attack Colombia. Huh. What about this? What a dirty war. And this is an image of Dr. Pedro Carreño of the National Assembly. And to continue with this, who is not an ethical person, the constituent Pedro Carreño stated in an interview to Blue Radio that Venezuela will answer to a possible military intervention by states backed by Colombia. He answered that Venezuela will not allow things to happen like this. We are not going to wait. We have armed forces and we need to be prepared to defend ourselves. Well, if something is not happening right in a given place, it should be solved in that place. And this is what Shakespeare said. This is not a phrase against Denmark, even though I said that word in Spanish. Carreño stated that whenever a military aggression begins, no one knows how it's going to end. We are not going to allow the tanks to freely invade Venezuela. We're going to do so. We need to divide Colombia into two, and this is a gigantic task. Our defense with radars grab planes 400 kilometers away, and they destroy them 200 kilometers away. This is Colombian territory, and the theater of war will be there. So please, let us live our own process. Take your own responsibilities with your states in a different way. However, do not attack a free country that in sovereignty and democracy goes through the road of Bolivarian democracy. And at the same time, based on this, I am not threatening you. I am not stating that we are going to attack Colombia. The systematic aggression on the Colombian people, the government, and our hope for a better weather doesn't come this way. And this is according to Dr. Pedro Carreño. We tell the Colombian people to take a hold of their insane people and to stop interfering with the foreign affairs of Venezuela and to drown with military actions our countries. Leave these things behind. And here we have some more information brought to us by our coordinator, a video of Dr. Carreño. Back Dr. Carreño, who's a constituent of Venezuela, the ones that the journalist from Colombia just mentioned in CMI News, were provided in the program of journalist José Vicente Rangel. Here we provide them with the same logo, CMI La Noticia, and it's clear the context of this. So please, go ahead, Director. So Colombians will be 200 kilometers from the border, and we have the Ante 2500, that is also 30 meters high. If we go through this, it will be at 2 ME. And we have 50 kilometers within the border, so the theater of war will be there. And then we have Pechora, that is 32 kilometers, 20 kilometers high. And then if you want to evade this height, because you want to go low in order to avoid raiders, then 0123, which are cannons that establish some barriers for this type of low-flying planes. And here we have some statements of the surveys that we had before, as well as the interviews and statements of Hernando Calvo Espina. Yours truly in the show dossier. I had the honor of interviewing here, and we have some interesting information about the intention of the states in attacking Venezuela. So what was said there?
A clear and present danger is una marca de fábrica.
A clear and present danger. It's a legal framework that means this justifies a war. I say this, half joking and half not. Something I love about their state is that whenever they tell you they're going to hit, they do. It's not like European diplomacy, because they would hold you and they tell you this will not happen. But then they hit you, but you're not prepared. However, with the States, you are prepared, because when they tell something, they do it. And back to the question I asked you. Explain how journalists, how intellectuals, how people who know about this, those who criticize imperialism of their states, we still doubt that what states said about Venezuela is going to happen. And whenever they say they're going to reach a certain place, they're going to do so. Whenever they say they're going to strike a country, they do so. And even more when they have strategic resources, and Venezuela has everything. So the worst thing that could happen to a poor country is to have wealth, because apparently we do not have rights of being the owners of our own things. And the great sin, just to quote, made by Chavez was saying that oil is Venezuelan and for the Venezuelans. So Venezuela, through this, got the worst enemies of the world. Here we have the Americans. We were the creators of OPEC as well. And not a single company of our 5 brothers want this, because we organized this in such a way where they are together defending the price of oil based on the producer, not on the buyer, as it happened before, and they will never forgive this. But there's been a lot of sins related to this. Alca reduced, and of course this is terrible. Colombian troops have been deployed in the city of Cúcuta in the border with Venezuela on Wednesday. And the video, Colombia deploys thousands of soldiers in the border with Venezuela, published on the 14th. Colombian troops in Cúcuta in the border with Venezuela, following the orders of Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos.
Bueno, nos encontramos en un trabajo de evaluación y seguimiento de las
This is an assessment and follow-up of the directions of the President. These are orders not only for the public force, but also for other institutions of the state to strengthen our presence in the border. This is an integrated work between the military and the police. This is a bucolic environment. However, things are very, very tense. Take a look at the different footprints there.
El hecho es que la situación se enrarece y no precisamente porque busque eso la República Bolivariana.
And things get weird even though the Venezuelan Republic isn't looking for this. Who is trying to provoke an event like this that doesn't favor anyone? Because if we are to see the force correlation together with weaponry, well, in the back you can observe there's flash, there's fuel, and everything that is coming through these roads. Well, this is what we have been able to gather with drones and with other air technology. And drones don't have as much noise. A helicopter wouldn't be able to fly there without vibration, even though you can control it. And there's always intense exchange. And of course, there's a compilation of tanks in the border with Venezuela that have been deployed since 2015. However, our tanks are bigger and heavier than theirs, based on the capacity, the weaponry, and every other thing. So through a statement, we mentioned this before, Maduro warns about a complot of the United States in the border between the two countries. The president also accused the government of Colombia of bringing militia groups to create a wave of violence in our country. President Nicolás Maduro spoke about a complot of the United States to create an armed confrontation between Colombia and Venezuela, and also accused the government of President Juan Manuel Santos of bringing infiltrates of the militia to harm the Venezuelan nation and create a wave of violence in the Bolivarian nation. American imperialism is creating provocations in the border and even beyond to bring Colombia and Venezuela to a state of armed conflict. I've said this many times and I will say it again, as Maduro mentioned on Thursday during an intervention in Fuerte Tiuna in the capital of Venezuela, Caracas. He also mentioned that we need to keep our guards up against the criminal oligarchy who are willing to comply from Bogota the orders coming in from Washington. Is this weird? This is what we have learned from history. They are the sons of traitor Santander, and the liberator forgave every single treason, and after each one of this there was a new treason. So these are things that we see all the time. Thankfully, today is Friday. We don't know if it's going to be a calm weekend. So Shabbat Shalom, Assalamu Alaikum, Pax Vobis. This is the wish of the three greatest monotheistic religions that have the same rights in the Holy Land and Jerusalem. We will be back on Monday if we don't have any emergencies during the weekend, after our beloved, polluted, and unique spacecraft had taken 3 turns about its imaginary axis. And of course, if God allows, we are back here to tell you the story, here in Dossier, of the events in full development. And we state once again that the phrases in development and in full development are registered phrases by yours truly in this program. So many citizens should know that the phrase in development is the intellectual property of Dossier. We could be more specific if you want to, if you don't understand this. Don't be part of the statistics. Take care of yourself. We will be back on Monday at the same place at the same time. Director, the floor is all yours.
Sorpresa de todas las sorpresas. La piedra angular